Rural Americans deserve access to the best of what our nation has to offer, especially health care. Across every state and every community, America's rural hospitals are the first line of defense, protecting our families, neighbors, and loved ones. No matter where you live, hospital care doesn't clock out. They're there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Each year, America's over 5,000 hospitals care for millions of patients, providing 24/7 emergency care, delivering babies, cancer treatments, and other life-saving care that patients rely on. Behind every one of those patients are doctors, nurses, and caregivers working tirelessly to keep people healthy and safe. Hospitals are our community's lifelines. They employ our neighbors and keep our families healthy. But now, some in Congress are threatening access to care. Tell Congress, protect patient care to keep America strong. Don't cut rural health care.
The Larry Kudlow Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Hello, folks. This is Larry Kudlow, and we've got obviously breaking news. You probably heard the United States and Israel have struck at Iran, and we'll get the news as it's coming in. We have General Jack Keane coming at the half hour, and former Energy Secretary Dan Brouillette will come at the top of the next hour. Basically, U.S. President Trump told the Iranian armed forces to lay down their arms or face certain death, and it's people to rise up and seize control of your destiny. President spoke for 8 minutes and made the case. Joint American Israeli strikes against Iran took place overnight, and this has been coming for quite some time. We've been building up this incredible armada of ships, probably the biggest over 20 years. And we're getting help from our Arab friends. As it turns out, Iran made the mistake of attacking some of the moderate Arab states, and we'll help out as the information trickles in. But the Saudi Arabia, which is of course very important, is on our side on this one, and they have declared war against Iran. And Mr. Trump is saying essentially to the Iranians, you've got to overthrow the mullahs and the Revolutionary Guards and regime change. You've got to do it. He's encouraging them to do it. He's exhorting them to do it. Iran is the number one state sponsor of terror. I mean, they've killed over 30,000 people. We've been covering that on this show and on the TV show. But at the end of the day, it's the Iranians who have to do it. And there was a bit of a fake out here. Secretary of State Marco Rubio was supposed to go into talks with Israel, I guess Monday and Tuesday or Sunday and Monday, but that was the fake out. He never went. And Mr. Trump kept saying he'd like a deal, and Jared Kushner, Steve Witkoff trying to make a deal, but the Iranians had no intention of making a deal. And the issue here is really, just to cut away from the military stuff, and we'll get to that in great details with General Jack Keane, who knows more about it than I'll ever know. But the point here is twofold. After the stunning bombings a few months ago, I call them the B-2 bombings, which destroyed most of the nuclear sites, but did not necessarily destroy the Iranian enrichment facilities or the uranium enrichment operation. And as long as Iran has that, they are a menace. That's point number one. Point number two is the ICBMs. Iran has a large stock of ICBMs, which I'm sure they're firing away right now. But as long as they continue to build up that stock, they are a menace to the region and to Europe and ultimately to the United States. So we got the job partially done, but of course, subsequently, Iran would never negotiate in good faith. And they kind of been spitting in our face. So there's a certain inevitability to this, a second strike. And it's going to go on for a while, I think, until the mission is complete. I mean, the UN was, of course, not allowed to enter into Iran. The UN watchdogs, nuclear watchdogs, are not allowed to enter into Iran. And they never have once allowed any on-site inspection. And they really believe that somehow they have a right to become a nuclear power. And they do not. They are the prime sponsor of terrorism throughout the Middle East and elsewhere around the world. Of course, they hate Israel. Of course, they hate the United States. And they have been a terrorist enemy for a long time. And it's been 50 years. We played cat and mouse with them for 50 years, right? Going back some odd 1979. And it's really a military state. I know the mullahs are nominally in charge. And there is a government and a parliament. But it really is a military state. The Revolutionary Guards, secret police, and so forth and so on. It's a military state. The economy has never been worse. I mean, if ever there was a time to strike, now is the time. The Iranian rial, the currency, has collapsed. Inflation is soaring. Unemployment is soaring. People take to the streets on a daily basis. But Iranians have been slaughtering the dissidents. And the head count, the kill count, has been going on now, I don't know, last week it was 32,000 or 35,000. Ambassador Robert O'Brien, who will be on the show later, reported that. I mean, it's a remarkable, horrible, awful thing. Lives. So it's, this military dictatorship. And we have to take action to protect the United States and our ally, Israel, and our other allies in the region. Iran is a rogue state, a very dangerous rogue state, but a rogue state nonetheless. So this was a long time coming. And President Trump, he doesn't want to make war. He has said many, many times he would like a deal. As I said, Jared Kushner, Steve Witkoff trying their best. Secretary Rubio trying his best. Trump himself trying to signal the Iranians, don't do this. But they don't listen. They never listen. So we're gathering information here to try to help you along. And we will have General Keane. I do want to talk a little bit about the State of the Union and the tremendous triumph of President Trump. And not surprisingly, this comes after his brilliant State of the Union speech. But I'll take a quick break here, and we'll come back and reset for you. And as I say, General Jack Keane will be here at 10:30. Nobody knows the story better than he does. I'm Kudlow. We'll be right back.
The Larry Kudlow Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Larry Kudlow Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Full-scale war in the Middle East, Israel and the United States. Canada has joined the United States. I don't know if anybody cares, but Canada decides they're joining the United States, and Mayor Mandami has come out against it. Of course he has. Big dummy that he is. He just saw Trump yesterday, talked about building housing, but Mandami's just a dummy. That's all he is. He doesn't understand anything. I wanted to, just before we try to track more on this war, I want to go back to Tuesday's incredible State of the Union speech by President Trump, which I thought was remarkable. And it was captivating and optimistic and growthier and epic. You can run out of adjectives. A real humdinger. And the fact that it went almost a couple hours doesn't bother me at all. I guess he beat Bill Clinton's record or came close to it. Because it was such a great speech. It was such a phenomenal speech. And I think, so much of that speech, using the guests in the gallery to make his points about patriotism and the wars and trans mistakes and tax cuts and any number of items. And, of course, Democrats could not see themselves to stand up and applaud, with the exception of Senator John Fetterman of Pennsylvania, who was dressed in a suit, shook Trump's hands, and then was pilloried for it by his Democratic Party. But so it goes. He showed respect. But really, America is a very prosperous country. It's a very safe country. And it's globally the most powerful, dominant country in the world. And just a few days after Mr. Trump made that point, peace through strength, here he is going into Iran and punishing the mullahs for their terrorism against Israel, against the United States, against Arab states in the Middle East. And there may be more work to do, but it is just so important, in my judgment at least, that Trump talk about the basic building blocks of economic growth, tax cuts and deregulation and energy and trade. Wages are going up now. Inflation's coming down. Prices, actually important grocery and household prices, have been coming down. And growth will solve so many problems. That's one of the underlying points that he is making in that speech. Growth will solve many problems. It'll solve deficits and debt. It solves poverty. It solves happiness. It solves welfare dependency. It's just so important if the economy can grow at 3 to 4% or better. When I sat with him for a Fox interview a couple weeks ago, he emphasized, growth can be unlimited. And he's right. Growth does not cause inflation. Supply-side growth, producing more goods, reduces inflation. That's exactly what's been happening. Democrats are in complete denial about all this. Bill Clinton was a growth Democrat working with Newt Gingrich. Way back, John F. Kennedy was really the last real growth Democrat. I wrote a book on this, JFK and the Reagan Revolution. Reagan, the former Democrat, of course, was the great growth, and Trump, former Democrat. I'm a former Democrat, going way back. But it was a brilliant speech, and as I say, captivating and growthier. And, of course, honoring military heroes. He just sort of fit it all in. And the Democrats have no response. Just petty little stuff. They think they're talking about affordability by raising taxes, really? By repealing the one big beautiful bill, which would amount to a $5 trillion tax hike? Is that how they're going to win over voters? Or going after ICE? Make no doubt about it. Trump has closed the border. And while people were concerned with the shootings in Minneapolis, putting Tom Homan in there and calming that situation down. It's still an 80-20 issue. People want illegal criminals gone. Make no mistake about that. And they're making a huge mistake in Congress right now with this partial shutdown of DHS. They're not shutting down ICE. They're shutting down TSA in the airports. They're shutting down the Coast Guard, the Secret Service, FEMA, with all the snowstorms and blizzards in blue states. And here you have these blue Democrats. It doesn't make any sense at all. And Trump essentially, by the way, in my view, he gave the Republican Party its talking points for the midterm elections. Basically, he said, here's what you should emphasize. And if they do that, they can beat history and win the midterms. It's still doable. I'm sure there'll be lots of polls out, and there are already probably lots of polls out, but we saw one from CNN of all places. Before the speech, he was in 54% right direction, which is really pretty spiffy. After the speech, it jumped to 64% right direction. Pretty darn good. But he was giving the Republican Party their talking points, especially on the economy and safety and the immigration laws. And it's interesting that the Republican leadership in the Senate and the House is absolutely behind Trump. This was not the case in the first term, but this has become the case. This is Trump's Republican Party. And this past week I interviewed House Speaker Mike Johnson. I interviewed Senate Majority Leader John Thune, and they were completely in line with Trump's America First values. They're not backing down. He's not backing down, and they're not backing down. And they're going to fight, by the way, not only to win and keep the House and Senate, but they want, it may be a second reconciliation bill to deal with the DHS, or it may be, it's going to be hammer and tongs for the Save America Act, photo IDs and citizenship proof in order to vote. Reconciliation 2.0 is necessary. These are strong Republican leaders who are 100% behind Trump. And I would say, as long as the Republicans stay with these what I call America First values, what Mr. Trump calls America First values, if he stays there, and they emphasize economic growth and prosperity, they'd do very well in the midterms. They might even beat history. You wait and see. What happened this past week and now taking out Iran, it all adds up to a very strong President Trump and Republican Party. I'm Kudlow, and we'll be back with General Keane on the other side of the break.
The Larry Kudlow Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Larry Kudlow Show, entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
All right, we return to coverage of the whatever breaking news on the war. And we bring in my good friend, General Jack Keane, retired four-star senior strategic analyst for Fox News. General Keane, thank you for helping out, kind of off the cuff. We appreciate it very much. Nobody knows this stuff better than you. And no one's been calling for this more than you have. And I agree. What can you tell us at this stage of the game? What does it look like to you, sir?
Well, so our audience understands, to begin with, this is the two best proven militaries in the world, the Israeli and U.S. militaries, that have combined to conduct a joint operation here, and the first offensive campaign in our joint history to take down this diabolical, tyrannical regime once and for all after almost 50 years of chaos and tyranny that they have caused, and killing literally thousands of Americans during that span of time as well. Credit President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu for the moral courage to see the historic opportunity and to seize it, given Iran is so vulnerable and weak. And as a result of a campaign that began in daylight, which is unusual in of itself, to achieve some tactical surprise so that the first targets hit were leaders. And we don't know all the results of that. It's unlikely we will get all the leaders, but we will more than likely get many. And that will be a major accomplishment itself. Also, the deception and partially reality of negotiations provided some cover also for this tactical supply, and also some of the posturing that was going on in our country about negotiations and the desire to have that as a plausible option when it never was a plausible option. And you and I have discussed that at length, Larry. Mm-hmm. Also helped in being able to achieve that kind of tactical surprise, because in Iran, they're braced for something to happen at night, not for something to happen today when people begin to gather in a work environment, etc. So that was step one. Step two is to take down their entire air defense system so that there's complete freedom of action for pilots throughout the entire terrain of Iran, something that was achieved in a couple of days during the 12-day war. And the psychological impact of jets flying, American and Israeli jets flying all over the airspace of Iran 24/7 over the next coming days and weeks cannot be underestimated in terms of the humiliation that has for the incumbent powers to be, and the strengthening of the resolve of the Iranian citizens to finally, at the end of the day here, do something about it. Early results are good news. The Iranian response has been much weaker than we anticipated. They have recovered much of their ballistic missile programs, and they have short-range and medium-range missiles. As of a couple of hours ago, they only fired about 40 of those at Israel, and they were not in major population centers, so they were either intercepted or they let them hit because they knew where they would go and they would do no damage. There's been some attacks, I believe, on U.S. bases. We don't know the results of that yet. We are expecting that the Iranians have thousands of drones, and as opposed to flying them during the 12-day war towards Israel, because Israel had attacked them, the United States had not. They used those drones to fly those several hours, and obviously the fighters were waiting for them and shot down just about every one of them. They would likely not do that again and focus those drones on U.S. bases in the region. We are prepared for that, but we're also prepared for the reality of casualties. This is not a limited attack, as some people were suggesting a couple of days ago. This has always been an air campaign that was put together between Israel and the United States many, many weeks ago, actually months ago. And the details are comprehensive. It's going to last weeks, not days. And that is what we're about here. And we're going to have a lot of wins here, but there's likely going to be some low points and disappointments. And that is what this is. War. This is not a one-off operation like Maduro in Venezuela, or like Qasem Soleimani, or like taking down the Syrian chemical capability a number of years ago, or killing al-Baghdadi, or even the Midnight Hammer operation, which was a one-off, comprehensive, complicated campaign, but just lasted a short period of time. This is not an operation. This is a campaign of war.
It sounds like we're going to determined, U.S. military determined to take them out once and for all. Everything. Now, ICBMs, interesting. Your point about the ICBMs, there's been so much talk about Iran's ICBMs. Maybe they didn't have them. I mean, maybe they wasted them. Or maybe we took them out in the Midnight Hammer operation. I mean, what do you make of that sound? I mean, I always thought that was really the last line of defense for Iran was these ICBMs.
No, well, a couple of corrections. They're not ICBMs. ICBMs are intercontinental ballistic missiles that traverse oceans that we have, Russia and China has. To date, we don't believe that Iran has any intercontinental ballistic missiles. They have medium range and short range. We do know for a fact, not supposition, but fact, that we destroyed about half of them during the 12-day war. But we do know they had about 2,000 left, and they have been recovering them rapidly since. One of the reasons for this operation to be conducted at all has to do with a couple of things. One is the rapid pace at which they were recovering these ballistic missiles, medium and short range. Secondly, Iran's determination not to change a thing after the 12-day war. Missile recovery, decision to restart the nuclear program but not to execute it, support for the proxies, money began flowing into the proxies again, and their determination to not change any of their objectives and aspirations and goals despite the 12-day war. You put that together with how vulnerable and weak they are, and Bibi Netanyahu and Donald Trump made the collective decision that now is the time to stop these guys once and for all, get them off the board once and for all, and rid the Middle East and the world writ large of this tyrannical, diabolical government that's been in existence for almost 50 years. So that's what drove the decision. However, in that decision, they were and still likely are very concerned about the capability that Iran was going to exhibit to come at U.S. bases massively with thousands of drones and also short-range ballistic missiles and go after Israel with hundreds of ballistic medium-range missiles. And best of my knowledge, that has not happened. There has been a response, but it is much weaker than we anticipated. It's not because they don't have them. It's that when you take the leaders down, Larry, and you take command and control, and we conduct cyber attacks on the ability to an organization, a military organization, to communicate with each other, to issue instructions, provide guidance, provide support, etc., and you disrupt all of that, there is a price to be paid down at the lower level where the launch systems are and the missiles and where the drones are. And that is probably what has happened to their not providing what they... We had good intelligence that as soon as we began an attack, they were going to conduct a massive retaliation, which made us move up forward in the attack plans, the destruction of the drones, the destruction of the missile sites. So that is also happening, that destruction, but also the disruption is likely occurring because we're kinetically impacting the chain of command, but also cyber attacks are disrupting the chain of command itself.
You know, as long as we've been talking about this Iranian situation, going back several years, General, you've wanted to see attacks on the command and control systems. You've said this so many times. And so is that what's happening? I mean, is that what the U.S. and Israel is doing? Are we taking out command and control?
Yes. We're going after leaders, and these are civilian political leaders as well as military leaders. So you have the leaders trying to get the leaders at the top, but also the legislature is being attacked. Other agencies of government are being attacked. The IRGC, the Basel militia, the police infrastructure, a deliberate attack and decapitation of these structures that sustain the regime. we want to break down the ability of this regime to function. And certainly the initial function we want to disrupt the most is their military function. But we are clearly want to completely disestablish their ability to function politically inside the country as well. And so this is a very comprehensive approach to disestablishing the entire infrastructure, both political and military, that supports the regime. And that will take, we can't do that in 24 hours. That's going to take time to completely unfold itself. But we have the plans and we have the resources to do all of that, plus take down the missiles and the drones, etc. And whatever initial recovery they're trying to make of their nuclear sites, and we know what they're doing to the old sites. It's mostly assessment and some piece of recovery, but there's also 1 or 2 new sites that they've gone to, and we absolutely know where they are, and they will be hit as well.
We're talking with General Jack Keane, retired 4-star general and vice chair, the Army Chief of Staff, and longtime friend, senior strategic analyst for Fox News, longtime friend and mentor to me. Can I just come back, General Keane, to the hitting the command and control and the leaders? Do we have any reports on hitting leaders?
We don't know for sure. I mean, all I have is anecdotal that we've killed a number of them. I don't know about the Ayatollah. There's all sorts of stuff running around about him. I've told that they haven't been able to contact him, but I don't think we can make any conclusions about that. That's going to take some time, as you can understand, to unfold. In all of this, they're not going to likely volunteer, everybody that's been killed. And certainly those renderings were likely done by standoff capability using cruise missiles fired from airplanes or submarines at outside of Iran itself. But we don't know if that's all that was done. We also know that there were some plans, for raids to be conducted on the ground, in and out, against selected targets. I don't know if any of that is unfolded, and if it did, they're not going to tell us anyway, based on whether those operations are complete or not. And they may not have chosen that option, but I know that there were plans being made, along those lines as well. I think what will happen, this is an operation that's planned for 2 to 3 weeks. I think what we'll see in a matter of days, Larry, countries will come together and try to get a ceasefire going here. So anticipate Qataris, Egyptians, Turkey, wanting to stop this. And what we have to have, and Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Trump will see right through that. We have military objectives that we need to conduct, and we have to finish this once and for all. And we can't fall prey to the political pressure inside the United States, inside Israel, and certainly in the region itself, applying that pressure to the Prime Minister and to our President to stop the killing. And we may at that time also have some casualties ourselves, and let's end this. We have to end it based on the military objectives we set for ourselves, and we should not end it until those objectives are achieved. A premature stopping this war would squander all the results that would have achieved up to that point that we walk away.
100%. The president said, apparently, I didn't hear it, but in his speech he said, major combat operations underway to obliterate Iranian missile factories, and he's telling Iranian troops to surrender now. This is this unconditional surrender. We talked about this during the 12-day war. I mean, is it possible there's splits inside Iran, or is it one, just one group that's in charge, no opposition? Because they're killing people at random, as you know. I mean, we've had Robert O'Brien on, this broadcast, and the kill number was up to something like 35,000, General. Maybe it's more than that. snipers on rooftops just firing bullets into these dissident crowds. And I mean, is everybody in that crazy place, all the leaders on board with those kinds of tactics?
No, absolutely not. And that's why they brought in so many, militia groups. The anecdotal feedback we were getting from people on the streets is saying the goons out there with the guns, this is when they were all holed up in their homes. You know, they had fled the streets. The people out there are speaking Arab, not Farsi. So they brought other people in, to do some of that killing for all the obvious reasons. They never committed their army troops, who are draftees and 19 to 22, and some of them likely live in those towns and cities, that they would be killing their own citizens. So, yeah, that has always been an issue for them. And listen, our CIA and obviously the Mossad is also working divisions within the government themselves to bring it apart and put pressure on them not to continue to support these diabolical leaders who are going to lead you all to your death, and to break from them. And that pressure is going to increase and mount. And certainly there's also Radio Free Florida, who's going in there and talking to the Iranian citizens. And our president dealt with them directly in his talk and appealing to them. This is your opportunity when the bombing stops to overthrow the regime. He is appealing to them, that he's telling them, I have come to help you. I have delivered what you asked for. Now it's going to be up to you. And obviously, whoever we're dealing with during that time frame, I'm hoping that we're able to, Larry, to bend them to our will, similar to what we're doing in Venezuela with the remaining thugs after Maduro's gone and after these elites are gone. Whatever thuggery we're still dealing with there, and it will be authoritarian, that we bend them to a will, and eventually, in time, and it will take time, to move from an authoritarian regime to a democratic government.
Got it. General Keane, thank you, sir. So informative. You're very generous with your time. Our audience appreciates you very much. I'm sure you're going to be very busy and are very busy, but thank you ever so much for helping out. General Jack Keane, folks, senior strategic analyst for Fox News, and he knows things that other people don't know. Anyway, I'm Kudlow. We're going to take a break, and we're going to come right back and wrap this one, and then we're going to look at some more. We've got more experts. Dan Brouillette, former energy secretary, Mr. Trump's first term, will talk about some of this and also the oil situation. I'm Kudlow. We'll be right back.
The Larry Kudlow Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Larry Kudlow Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Again, many thanks to General Jack Keane for helping us all out on this. And this Operation Epic Fury, this is the moment, without any exceptions, without stopping too soon, to take out their leadership, to take out the missiles that the leadership still harbors, to take out the enrichment facilities regarding the uranium nuclear bombs. It's important to get the job done, and it sounds like we are determined to get the job done with support from all over the world. More on this coming. Dan Brouillette, former energy secretary. I'm Kudlow. We'll be right back.
The Larry Kudlow Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Larry Kudlow Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
So we're still doing the best we can to cover Operation Epic Fury. We heard from General Keane. This is come hell or high water. They have to be taken out, including the leadership, the command and control, along with the ballistic missiles and so forth. Our next guest is also an old friend of mine. Dan Brouillette was the Secretary of Energy during President Trump's first term. And Dan, you still with the Edison Electric now?
No, Larry, I'm with the Tordon Group here in Washington, D.C., along with some other friends of ours, like Mike Pompeo.
Like Mike Pompeo, okay. Well, that's good. Okay, well, I apologize for that. But inevitably, people want to talk about oil and the Straits of Hormuz. Oil prices have jumped up about $10, maybe a little more, in recent weeks. They were headed. I mean, our oil prices, West Texas, Dan, I think we were in the 50s, and then came the Iran saber rattling, and I'm all for it. I mean, I think there's still a glut of oil worldwide, but walk through some of the thoughts that you may have on Iranian mischief and the oil markets as this Operation Epic Fury is implemented and undertaken by the U.S. and Israel.
Right. No, Larry, you're exactly right. And look, I'll give credit to you, Larry, as the head of the NEC in Trump 1. It was the leadership that you showed at the time and the importance that you placed upon energy production here in the United States that gave us the strength and quite candidly gives the president today the ability to carry out missions like the one we're seeing this morning.
Well, you're very
and not have the world oil market turn upside down, if you will. I mean, it wasn't that long ago, Larry, 30, 40 years ago. Had this event occurred, we would be seeing $100 a barrel.
Right.
Today we're seeing, 70, 75. It's a testament to the amount of production that's in around the world. But look, I think as we think about what's happening in the Strait, about 3% of the world's oil production is in Iran today. They have roughly 10% of the world's reserves. We have roughly 1/5 of the oil that is produced in that region coming through the Strait of Hormuz. And what we're seeing, in my opinion, today with the price spike is really the risk premium of getting that oil through, obviously, but it has more to do with paper than it does supply. This is the contractual arrangements between producers and supplier and distributors and, customers. And they're worried about whether or not that oil that they've contracted for is going to reach them. So you're seeing that immediate price spike. But over the long run, if you think about this, again, only 3% of the oil that's produced in Iran today is actually making it to the market, 3 million barrels a day or so. Saudi Arabia can easily cover that with their excess capacity. The United States can easily cover that with our capacity. Others, Venezuela perhaps, if it chooses to come back online, can cover those losses. So stability in the oil markets, I think over the long run, is the word of the day. We're going to see that. Prices are going to spike in the near term. In the long term, they're going to come back down. And consumers all across the world are going to be the beneficiaries of that.
We are, of course, in the first term, we all, you, myself, Rick Perry, and so forth, we were just implementing presidential strategy, drill, baby, drill, in those days. I mean, nobody knows oil and oil diplomacy better than Donald Trump. But Dan Briette, let me just, we're running close to 14 million barrels a day, which is really breathtaking. We're just short of 14 million barrels a day. So your points about the market's well supplied and the Saudis, where is Iran? Iran was producing over 3 million barrels a day. Is that the case still?
That's about right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
And they're selling mostly to China. I don't know. Right. And selling to Russia, I don't know how much Russia's buying. What are the discounts? What were the discounts to China? Were they substantial?
They're huge. They're huge because, there's nobody else to sell it to. So the Chinese took advantage of that. Yeah. And, got some pretty good pricing, frankly, from the Iranians. That's their only real market, to be honest, Larry. They have nowhere else to sell this oil. And, that's why I suggest that in terms of world supply, world pricing, what we're seeing is just that immediate price spike that's associated really with contractual arrangements. Over a longer period of time, we're going to see those prices settle down. And I dare say they'll be back down in the mid-60s or even low 60s not very long from now, because people will understand that, look, this oil was being produced in Iran and it's going to China. It wasn't coming to the United States. It wasn't coming to Europe. It's going to China. And we can replace that very, very easily.
your sources tell you anything? We're supposedly have maximum sanctions on everything related to Iran, including China, but I can never figure out whether those sanctions were in fact enforced. You have any sources on that the Chinese stopped buying? Or, supposedly, it was sanctions. If you did business with Iran, you can't do any business with the United States. Sort of a double tariff.
Yeah.
I don't know was that ever enforced?
Yeah, certainly not during the Biden administration. Not that I saw, Larry. I saw the Chinese continue to buy Iranian oil, and I don't want to say that they did it openly and freely, but they did it fairly freely. And I think, as we saw, during the Biden administration, they were much more concerned with things like climate change and, compliance with the Paris Accords than they were compliance with U.S. sanctions on Iranian oil. And as a result, Iran was able to sell a lot of their oil into the Chinese market. And as we all know now, a lot of that money was used to fund terrorism and nuclear weapons development locally. So I think the short answer is no, they weren't enforced as aggressively as I think we did in the first Trump term, and they weren't enforced as aggressively as perhaps they should have been.
What, I don't know, that's still their biggest cash crop, isn't it? I don't know. Iran potentially has a pretty good economy, but I don't think they have a good economy because of all the war footing and, the mullahs and the military. It's a socialist, statist kind of economy. I don't think there's much going on there besides oil, is there?
No, not right now, Larry. The bulk of their economy is dependent upon the production of oil and getting it into the marketplace. But look, let's be clear. This is an incredible society. The Iranian people are just remarkable people. The engineering talent there, the math talent there, the things that could be done in Iran and were done, frankly, many, many years ago. The possibilities are endless. And I think if the people choose to use this moment to return to those days, their economy could explode. As we think about what's going on here in the United States with AI, with data centers, with the development of these new technologies, the Iranian people could be part and parcel to all of that economic development. And it's I think, going to be an exciting day if the Iranian people choose to displace this regime and replace it with a democratic government. If that happens, watch for this economy to explode.
President Trump wants them to surrender and get on with it, right? We don't know yet. Jack Keane, who does know things, but they're going after the leaders in this bombing. Mm-hmm. We don't know yet, and we may not know who has been hit and who hasn't been hit for a while. But there have to be different factions. They have to be different factions. And somebody should just surrender. I don't know. Take out the bad. They're all bad guys, but I guess some are worse than others. You've got military, you need a military coup or something to end this bloody thing. Rather, because, look, the mullahs, I call them the mullahs together. They're killing the guard, the mullahs. They're killing citizens left and right, Dan Bria. Robert, O'Brien very well. O'Brien's been reporting on this show, and he's coming on again in a couple minutes. The last I heard a week ago was 35,000. It's probably substantially higher than that. This is killing, murder. This is murdering Iranian citizens, right, who don't have the weapons that the military has. Somebody's got to stop it. You can't keep going on like this.
No, you're exactly right. You're exactly right, Larry.
Something, I don't know. This is what Trump wants. He doesn't really want to fight a war. He wants the regime to end and for to realize the potential, Dan Brad, that you're describing. That's what Trump wants. Realize the potential.
Really this had to be the toughest decision, one of the toughest decisions he's made as president.
Right.
You well know, Larry, this is not what he wanted to do.
That's right.
These are not the types of things he wants to do. He wants peace. He has said that repeatedly. He wants peace. And this is part of the effort to get peace, but sometimes these are unfortunate events that have to occur to force that change. And you're absolutely right about the amount of, deaths in Iran. I was just talking to a good friend of mine. He happens to be Persian American, Tala Gadarzi. She's telling me, it's 30,000+, and those are the ones we know about.
All right.
We don't know who else, may have perished in this fight. But it's important for, it's important for us to continue this mission. To your point, this mission, it's important for someone over there to stand up. And they already have, but I'm waiting for, today and tomorrow and the next couple of days, somebody, be it a military general, be it some sort of business leader, or just be it the college people that we've seen in the streets, somebody's going to stand up. And I think I am optimistic that this regime is going to fall. And what a great day it will be if that happens for the Iranian people.
You're right. For the Iranian people and the rest of the world. But mostly, you're right.
And the rest of the world.
For the Iranian people.
Yeah.
You're quite right. They're the ones who have suffered the most. Sure. And you can't stop too soon. This was something that General Keane warned. You're going to see in the next, day or two, the voices of appeasement will come back again. Let's have a UN. I see already Macron in France. Exactly what we expect of Macron. He wants a UN meeting. Like, does anyone possibly care?
You know it's coming, Larry, because you've seen this movie before.
Of course.
You know it's coming. We dealt with this when we were dealing with JCPOA back in the first term.
It's
you had
true.
People saying, "Oh my God, you can't do that because of this and because of that, because of this and because of that."
Macron always wanted peace talks. That just is terrible. I mean, look, Bolton was right on this one. He was right. You know what I mean? I hate to see him. He's turned against the president and whatnot. And that's all too bad. But John was right about Iran. But everybody was right about Iran. I mean, only Macron wants.
While we were talking, or Macron wanted to talk, they were out there, trying to figure out how to move forward on the nuclear weapons program.
Of course.
While we're sitting around some table, debating ourselves. And that's just insane. Now, John had it right. And you had it right. Others had it right.
You had it right.
I'm so happy to see what's happening today. I think I'm not happy in the sense of I never want to see war. My son's in the Navy, may actually be out there, pretty soon. So I'm not looking for that to happen. But you know what? It's time for this regime to go because they are. They do unsettle the entire region. Yep. And it's time for us, as we did with the Abraham Accords and other matters, it's time for us to get back to a peaceful society, a democratic society, and, stability in that entire region.
100% right. Dan Briette, great friend, former energy secretary in Mr. Trump's first term. Thank you, Dan. Appreciate it very, very much.
Hey, Larry.
Folks, we'll take a quick break, and then former Deputy Treasury Secretary Mike Faulkner is going to come on and give us his insights on this whole story. I'm Kudlow. We'll be right back.
The Larry Kudlow Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Larry Kudlow Show, entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Mike Faulkner was a Deputy Treasury Secretary in the first year, helped get the one big beautiful tax cut bill through. He's now with America First Policy Institute. Mike, we've been going long. I'm sorry we don't have much time, obviously because of the war story. But you have quick thoughts. I was talking to Dan Briette, whom you know, former Energy Secretary. I mean, you have a risk premium built into the jump in oil prices, but that's not going to last. The world is awash in oil, isn't it?
It is, and when the president talked at the State of the Union address how the Venezuelan oil is now coming into the global markets rather than being illicitly sent to China, and so that's going to be an offset to the temporary spike that we might see from military action in the Gulf.
I mean, the stock market got whacked yesterday, and the stock market really has been jittery. Everybody says it's about AI and all the rest of it. But I think the stock market, there's always uncertainty when you have these military operations. It's going to come out well on the other side. I mean, we have overwhelming power, and I don't think the president's going to stop any too early on this one.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you. I think, the U.S. military continues to demonstrate the capability that it has to do just amazing operations, and I'm very confident that we'll have a short set of military activities, and once there's some resolution on that, I think you'll see equity markets and commodity markets recover from some of the fear trading that took place on Friday.
I mean, it seems unimportant right now, but it was a headline. The Freddie Mac 30-year mortgage rate dropped below 6%. Will it stay below there, Mike Faulkner? It's a tough call, I know, but you think?
I think for the first time, for the first time in 4 years, it's below 6. If the president continues to focus on creating growth without inflation, that's going to put pressure off of interest rates, and that'll continue to be compounded into the 10-year Treasury bond yield, which is the base rate, of course, under which mortgage securities and mortgage loans are priced. And so I think if we continue to see reductions in the budget deficit, if we continue to see economic growth, if you continue to see an absence of inflation, all of that should be good for the bond market, for long-term Treasury yields, and therefore flow into mortgage yields. Yeah,
I mean, if the 10-year keeps slipping down below 4, which is interesting, the short end of the curve is inverted, right? The 3-month bill is higher in yield than the 2-year note and the 5-year note. That's not a healthy situation.
Well, remember, usually we worry about inversions because we think that the Fed only comes in and lowers interest rates when we're on the verge of a recession. But if instead what we're seeing is we had high interest rates because of their inability to control inflation during the Biden years, if all the inflationary pressures are relaxing, then the Fed's going to cut interest rates because of the relaxation of inflationary pressure, not because we're on the verge of a recession. No. So I would not over evaluate the inversion of the yield curve.
All right, we'll leave it there. Mike Faulkner, thanks, buddy. Sorry I was short today. Talk soon. Folks, quick break, and then Ambassador Robert O'Brien, former National Security Advisor, will help us out on the Iran story. I'm Kudlow. We'll be right back.
The Larry Kudlow Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Larry Kudlow Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Ambassador Robert O'Brien is a former National Security Advisor during Mr. Trump's first term. He's currently chairman of American Global Strategies. He's been in the diplomatic game for many, many years. Robert, thanks for helping us out. In a sense, you talked to us last week and the week before, so you knew this was coming. It was just a question of when. And Iran, mullahs, and military slaughtering all these dissident civilians. So as you look at this story, Robert O'Brien, what do you see here in the early hours of this joint U.S.-Israel attack on Iran? What do you see, Robert?
Larry, thank you for having me on. The first thing I see is the entire responsibility for this attack is on the Ayatollah and the mullahs. President Trump was assiduous in his diplomacy. He gave him a great deal. He gave him such a good deal that there were even people here in America criticizing President Trump for being too lenient on the Iranians. He basically took Mike Pompeo's 10 points that Iran had to agree to avoid an attack in the first term, narrowed it down to 3. He said, look, get rid of your ballistic missile program, which could threaten America. Get rid of your nuclear program, your weapons program. You can still have a civilian nuclear reactor, but stop enriching. And stop giving money to the terrorists of Hamas and Hezbollah and the Houthis and Kataib Hezbollah. And we're good. And sanctions will be lifted, and you can reenter the normal economy, the world economy. That was a tremendous deal for the Ayatollahs. And what did they do? They thought they were negotiating with Joe Biden or Barack Obama. They came back with half measures, and they tried to extend and pretend a real estate term for negotiations and pretend they were doing something that they tried to, as President Trump likes to say, and you've heard this many times from the president, Larry, tap him along and wait until he had to outlast the fleet and have the fleet come home and then outlast the president in his term in office. So they're responsible for this. They didn't engage in good faith diplomacy. They tried to play the Iranian playbook, and they brought the attack on themselves.
Is that those 3 points distilled from Pompeo's first 10 points. Has the president said that? Has that been out there? It's very interesting. Has that been out there publicly?
No, that's out there. The president has said it over and over again. That he hasn't mentioned the reduction from the 10 points, but he's made the 3 points very clear. And that was a great deal for the Iranian regime. They could have stayed in power, and maybe not so good for the Iranian people immediately, but it would have kept us out of war. And as you know, the president hates war. The president took this step with a lot of reticence because he hates putting the men and women of armed forces at risk. But he won't hesitate to do so if the American people are threatened. And he knew, look, the Iranians were going to get a nuclear weapon, and they were going to get an intercontinental ballistic missile. That was just a question of time and resources. Resources and time would have given them those. That was going to happen. And President Trump doesn't know who his successor will be, or maybe 10 years or 20 years down the road when the Iranians actually get this technology and marry it up with the ballistic missiles. But he did not want Americans to be blackmailed, and he certainly didn't want Manhattan or Los Angeles to be hit by an Iranian nuclear weapon. And so he did what he had to do to protect the American people, even if that means putting our servicemen and women at risk. So he does it with reticence, but again, this is on the Iranians.
You think there's sort of conflicting accounts here, but General Keane talked about how the joint attack was going after the command and control and the Iranian leaders, Ayatollahs presumably, and IRGC and whoever else. There's another, Fox News is reporting that the U.S. is not bombing the Ayatollahs. Like his compound was hit pretty hard. It's Israel that's hitting the leaders. We don't know where the Ayatollah is. We just know that his compound was destroyed. I mean, do you buy that? The United States is not hitting leaders, but only Israel is? Does that make sense to you?
Well, it makes sense because the Israelis are the ones who have the exquisite intelligence, Larry. And you know this from the White House. The Israelis always knew where the bad guys were. You never want to get on the bad side of Mossad and Bibi Netanyahu because they're very clever. They'll track you down. And so it doesn't surprise me. We saw what they did to the leaders of Hezbollah in Lebanon with their cell phones and their walkie-talkies and that big meeting that they hit. The Israelis are very good at finding out where the bad guys are and targeting them. So, look, we have to split resources. Iran is a big country. There are a lot of targets. And it wouldn't surprise me if the U.S. took on the tougher bunkers, the launchers out in the desert, things that our bombers and our long-range stealth fighters can target, and the Israelis took on the individuals, the command and control. Which, by the way, those are military targets. Those are not civilian targets. Those are the commanders of the Iranian army and Revolutionary Guard. So they're very legitimate targets for the Israelis to hit, or for us to hit, for that matter. But my guess is there was a division of labor. But again, I'm always speculating.
It's also important, I think, let's not end this too soon. You've already got Macron of France calling for UN meetings. Like, who cares about the UN? And by the way, speaking of the UN, as you well know from your experience, that down through the years, Iran has always played cat and mouse with the UN. They never let the inspectors in for long, if at all. And they're not letting them in at all recently, okay? So we don't know about, their enrichment. We don't know. We never knew how close they were to an actual nuke. And that goes with the development. You mentioned ICBMs, as well as their medium-term missiles. The UN is powerless here. Why would anybody talk about going to the UN? This is something. All these Arab countries are behind us. I was reading, Robert O'Brien, the Saudis are with us because Iran is attacking our bases in Saudi Arabia. The Saudis are backing this. Everybody's backing this. They want to wipe out Iran as much as we do.
If the Europeans wanted peace, President Macron, who's a good man, I know him. President Macron ought to send to Charles de Gaulle their aircraft carrier to the Mediterranean and get involved in the fight and help us wipe out this evil Iranian regime. And by the way, they've killed many hundreds of Frenchmen. When the Marine barracks were hit by Iran through their proxy Hezbollah in 1983, all those hundreds of Frenchmen who died were at the hands of the Iranians. If France wanted to get justice for their soldiers and bring peace to the Middle East and bring peace to Lebanon, which they're very concerned about, President Macron ought to stop calling for the UN to be involved and get the French Air Force, which is quite effective, get the French Air Force involved in helping us, take out this Iranian regime. That would be the best step you could take for peace. Look, I understand, Macron and Starmer and these, Europeans wanting peace. We all want peace, but at some point we have to realize the Iranians don't want peace. They're not that into it. So we and you're right about their tactics. The Iranians are the masters at negotiation. They're the masters at stringing people along. They're the masters at these fake inspections. So you're absolutely right. They give you a little peep and then expel the inspectors and then have a negotiation about how they can come back in. And by that time, they've moved all the material that was going to be inspected. So, you're 100% right. There's no role for the UN now. The role right now is for fighter bombers and naval forces to degrade the Iranian regime so that the people of Iran can take it over as President Trump called for. He said, stay in your homes and be careful now that the bombs fly, but as soon as we're done, you go seize the government. It's your chance of a generation to get your freedom and go back out in the streets and seize your government and have a democracy.
So far, by the way, speaking of Macron, Prime Minister Carney in Canada is actually backing us. How about that? He doesn't. He doesn't back Trump on anything, but he came out in favor of this. And then I hate to add politics to it, but you kind of have to. One Democrat has stood up and publicly endorsed this action. Fetterman of Pennsylvania. Fetterman. He's my new hero. He was the guy, he dressed up in a suit, nice suit and tie at the State of the Union, Robert O'Brien, and shook President Trump's hand. Okay? Whereupon he was trashed by the rest of the Democratic Party.
Isn't that amazing, though? You're polite to the president, the leader of your country, the president of the United States, and you get attacked for being polite.
It's incredible.
Where's the Democrat Party gone that being polite to the president is some kind of sort of a hate crime or a microaggression?
It's absolutely incredible to me.
Fetterman loves America. Look, you and I would disagree with Fetterman on most of his economic plans, but the one thing I won't disagree with him on is his love for America. He loves America. He loves working people in America. We have and this is how it used to be, Larry. We used to have differences of opinion on policy, but we love the country. Now, when I see all these Democrats come on, I haven't seen one yet on CNN or Fox this morning that's actually supported the troops, supported the taking down these evil jerks and thugs in Tehran and if you're in favor of women's rights, they beat women for not wearing a hijab. They kill women for not wearing a hijab.
Right.
They hang gays from cranes. If you believe in gay rights and human rights and women's rights, why wouldn't you welcome this attack on these evil thugs?
Boy, isn't that the truth? We're the Sam Nuns of the Democratic Party. Actually, going back, the Al Gores. Al Gore was a hawk on back in the Cold War. Bill Clinton too. I mean, it's just incredible. Anyway, my concern here, and it's something General Keane raised earlier, Robert, and I'm just passing it along. You just don't want this mission to stop too soon, right? The whole world.
No, this has to be at least a multi-day, probably a multi-week mission.
Right.
This is going to go on for some time, and it's going to involve all of our allies. It's going to involve the Gulf Arabs. It's going to involve Israel. It's going to involve us. We need a lot of lead downrange, so to speak, for the next couple of weeks to take these guys out because, like they've dug in. They knew this was coming. They knew they weren't going to play ball in the negotiations, so they had to, at some level, prepare for this. So it's going to take a while to dig them out.
And hopefully we can get the leadership. I mean, look, one way or another, you got to take the leadership out. You just have to. We didn't do that, the last mission, as well executed as it was. We did not take their ruling government. I mean, look, you were talking about 35,000 people getting killed. How many? It's a week later. How many more you think got killed by this crowd?
Oh, Larry, these guys are brutally vicious, and they talk about Hamas and the Palestinian genocide in Gaza. The Israelis were dropping leaflets on buildings saying, "We're going to bomb this building. Go to safety." That was what was happening in Gaza, and people are so upset about it. But you never heard a peep from the left, the pro-Palestinian left. You didn't hear a peep about the Iranian people getting slaughtered by their own government. Tens of thousands of people being slaughtered. And we didn't even hear about it. This was a true genocide. This was a real genocide that took place. And you're right, Larry, until the leaders are the evil, leaders that authorize those killings are taken out and removed from power, there's no safety for the Iranian people. And there's no safety for the American people.
Absolutely. Ambassador Robert O'Brien, who was the national security advisor to Mr. Trump in the first term, he's now chairman of American Global Strategies. Robert, thank you. We appreciate it very much. As always, be well. Talk soon. Folks, we'll take a quick break and then talk a little economics with my pal John Carney of Breitbart. Be right back.
The Larry Kudlow Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Larry Kudlow Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Well, we're trying to sneak in some economics in this Iranian war broadcast. So let's bring in my pal John Carney, Breitbart news editor for economics and finance and co-author of the Breitbart Business Digest. John, thanks for being available. It's been kind of a crazy show so far. But one thing I wanted to sneak in, the PPI, Producer Price Index yesterday, jumped up. I don't know. The top line was 0.5, and the 3-month is creeping up to almost 5% at an annual rate. I don't know. I never trust this index, and I don't even know what to look at the index. So is this an inflation problem? Is this a tarifflation problem? I mean, I thought the stock market sold off yesterday because of it knew Iran war was coming. But putting that aside, what's your take on this PPI?
Yeah, so it's definitely not a tarifflation story. It makes it very clear that the inflationary pressures in our economy are actually coming from the services sector, and really tariffs at the consumer goods part of this. So there's a section in here called finished consumer goods, declined 1.3%. So it's the steepest drop since March. So when you look at I love the PPI numbers, but they're the most misinterpreted numbers that are out there. It's also often called wholesale inflation because back in the 70s, that's what the index was called, but it has nothing to do with wholesale. This index is telling us that the inflation for January actually came in mostly from margin expansions, which is to say improved profits. That's a really volatile mix. The Fed generally actually ignores it because if it goes up in 1 month or 1 quarter, it tends to then go back down in the next month or the next quarter. So the underlying inflationary message in this report was really that we don't have an inflation problem at all.
Yeah, services, huh? Services. So where are we? I mean, Trump gives this really growthier speech. I loved it. Captivating speech. on Tuesday, the State of the Union. Republican Party's behind him. They're behind him on tariffs. They're behind him on photo IDs for voting, and citizenship. They're behind him on ICE. And, I mean, to me, looking at what Trump said, and even this bombing of Iran, which you kind of knew had to happen, the Iranian leadership brought it on themselves. I mean, he's in a strong position. And, I just want to add, I spoke to John Thune, the majority leader of the Senate. I spoke to Mike Johnson, the speaker. They're behind him. This is unlike the first term when so many of the senators and House members were not behind. This is Trump's party. He gave out the talking points. The leadership is behind him. I mean, I'm just thinking, with a decent economy, they may defy history and they could win the midterms or do very well in the midterms. What you thinking here?
I think the timing was actually very good for Trump. We had a rough fourth quarter GDP number, but that was due to the Democrat shutdown of the government. That'll actually come rip-roaring back, I think we're going to see in the first quarter of this year when those numbers come out. I think we're going to get really good GDP first quarter. We should have good GDP the second quarter. I think the inflation numbers are going to keep coming down. Trump is actually set up to be, the Democrats, I think, are way overconfident about their ability to do well in the midterms because in their minds, they think the economy is terrible. They've been saying it so much, they've convinced themselves. There are polls that show that 80% of registered Democrats say the economy is contracting, which is, just completely bizarre and, out of touch with reality. So I think the economy is actually on an upswing.
That's why you've told me never to look at those confidence numbers because it's all a bunch of cranky Democrats who hate Trump.
Absolutely, 100%.
I know, you're exactly right. All right, John Carney, Breitbart Daily Business Digest. Thank you, buddy. I'm sorry we're running short. We will take a break, and on the other side of the break, we'll have some discussions about the stock market and money in politics, as always. I'm Kudlow. Please stick around. More coming.
The Larry Kudlow Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Larry Kudlow Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
So, welcome back, folks. I'm Larry Kudlow. We've been trying hard to cover the Iran war with the brilliant bombing, surprise bombing from the United States and Israel. We had General Jack Keane on. We had Ambassador Robert O'Brien on and others doing the best we can to keep up with events. I think we've covered it pretty good. By the way, you can live stream us over the Internet for coverage. Let's see, LarryKudlowShow.com, LarryKudlowShow.com, all across the country and around the world, throughout the solar system, including the Milky Way, live stream us. And during the week, Fabulous Fox Business, the name of the show is Kudlow, 4 to 5 p.m., Monday through Friday. If you can't make it at 4, you can, I don't know, just text your favorite 9-year-old and she'll show you how to DVR the show. You'll never miss a thing, I hope. Bad week for stocks, kind of, sort of, I don't know. The Dow is off 1.3%. The S&P 500 less than that, 0.4. The NASDAQ off a percentage point. Doesn't look that bad. I think people are telling me how bad AI is. I don't buy it. I think the market knows there's an issue, a war. It's going to be temporary. Oil prices, jumped up. Brent crude is up almost 20% year to date, and West Texas up 17%. But this is temporary stuff from the war. The market is oversupplied with oil. So that's my take. With great fear and trepidation, I will bring in our two distinguished guests. Enormous fear and trepidation. There's no telling what they're going to say during this wartime broadcast that I'm attempting here on a Saturday. He who laughs last laughs hardest, or something. I don't know. Ken Polcari, whom I've known for years, chief market strategist at Slate Stonewell. Jim Urio, whom I've known equally for years. Never understood what he was talking about, but he's director of TJM Institutional Services. You know, Jim Urio, you're a restaurateur in Chicago, but meanwhile the Bears are moving to Indiana. What do you make of those apples?
No, they're not. That's a ploy. They're just using their leverage to get the state of Illinois to allow them to move to Arlington Heights, which is 3 miles away from my restaurant on the same street. So it might be my book talking, but that could make me a sizable amount of money if they declare the Arlington Heights site. But I do think there's a chance they still want to stay in Illinois, and that was just a ploy. What do you think, really? Do you really think they're moving to Indiana?
I have no idea, except that the management of Illinois, both Chicago and the state, is
what you're about to say is going to be the most underrated. Yes, that's terrible.
I mean, these guys, all they want to do is tax you to death and regulate you to death. And not keep the peace. I don't know. So stay in Chicago. Listen, the New York Giants moved to the Meadowlands in New Jersey. I mean, the football Giants were a mainstay, Yankee Stadium. I actually saw them in the Polo Grounds when I was a kid. That's a long time ago. And the Jets play in the same stadium in the Meadowlands. And neither teams have done squat for 20 years. So I don't know. Maybe there's something to that. I don't know. It could be. So Jim Urio, while we're talking about this story, what's your take on the world? What's your take on interest rates in the stock market?
So the first thing I would say, okay, about my take on the world is that it seems so odd to me that the same people that were screaming about us not doing enough for the Ukrainian people are saying, how can we be going into Iran to help the Iranian people? So everybody just talks their book instead of evaluating each individual policy on its own, and it's so frustrating. How the world is, I mean, we knew what was going to happen in Iran. It seems like that's one of the reasons that oil is up 20% since the beginning of 2026, which, by the way, the other reason I think is that people genuinely believe that the U.S. economy is better than anyone had thought it was going to be and more resilient than anyone thought it was going to be. How's that for being optimistic on a Saturday morning, Mr. Kudlow? But the stock market is fascinating to me. Okay, let's go to NVIDIA posting really good earnings and then getting clobbered. Okay, that's kind of indicative of the whole market. The market is at a nice lofty level. That 7,000 level above the S&P hangs like the sword of Damocles and is resistance above. And what it's telling us is that it's kind of put up or shut up moment for the U.S. economy. We know that the economy has the tailwinds of the tax cuts going into 2026, deregulation, return of some foreign investment, which would solve some supply chain issues. But all that kind of stuff takes time. So the market is telling us we need to see some real meaty results of that before we push through that 7,000 level, which is fair. We've had 3 years in a row of double-digit, average 20% gains. What usually happens after that is the fourth year, the average is about 5%, well below the historical 9% average. And it's a midterm year, another volatility-inducing event of that. So the fact that the stock market has stalled out a little bit here is perfectly reasonable to me, and I don't think it's indicative of any sort of economic event.
I don't. By the way, well said. But Ken Polcari, I don't understand this. It's what Ed Yardeni is calling the AI derangement syndrome, and he's right. I mean, it's like Trump derangement. It's like now everything is bad. So you have these big companies, these big techie companies, scaling up capital goods, making use of 100% immediate depreciation, write-off bonuses, etc., building factories, building power stations, etc., etc. To me, this is all good. And yet you've got people glomming on to half-baked research reports that tell us how bad AI is going to be for the world. And if any company like NVIDIA, so they're investing heavily in new technology, new chips. Okay, fine. Isn't that what we want them to do? I mean, I want Google to invest heavily. I want them to stop with their wokeness. But when it comes to the rest of what they do, if they're going to have a better robot or a better ChatGPT, fine. This is the time to do it. Why is this bad? Why are people so panicky about AI and software and the like?
I think it's just the recent kind of conversation and the nervousness and anxiety that's building. And then you see headlines like yesterday at Block, Jack Dorsey, and he said it very clear. He laid off 40% of his workforce in favor of the bet he's making on AI. And then he said, other CEOs around the country better start paying attention because this is the way that it's going. And so while I agree AI is coming, it's already here, it's changing every day, I'm not in the camp that it's going to eliminate. I'm in the camp that it's going to enhance.
Right.
But yet you have the fear mongers, right? So you have them out there going, oh, my God, this is the end of the world. And so, I think it happens during every industrial revolution. I wasn't around for the first two. But this one, yes, it's a little bit more. This one's a little bit more dynamic because it's about the technology and what the technology can do. And that's all. I think it's just a bunch of fear-mongering headlines meant to create all this panic, which I think is ridiculous.
There's two things I want to disagree with that. First of all, based on the grayness of Kenny's beard, I think he was around for the first industrial revolution. That's number one. And two, it would not be the most unusual thing in the world for a disruptive technology to adversely affect the labor market in the short and medium term. I 100% agree that eventually technology is a great thing, but if our workforce is not structured for it right now, it could be somewhat clumsy transition. And I think that there's some fear. Yeah.
I think you're right, but I also think that happens in every revolution, right? That everyone, there is disruption along the way and it creates this fear and anxiety. That's true. I'm not taking away from that, but in the end, I think it's a matter of, you have education is going to change. What people start to study and what they do is going to change. New opportunities are going to be created. Yes, it's going to be a little bit nerve-wracking going through it. I agree. And so there is some of that, but I don't think it's an all-out, oh, my God, this is the end of the world.
Same.
There's always some losers in these techie revolutions, whatever they happen to be.
Right.
There's always some losers, but the winners overshadow the losers.
Agreed, but it takes time. You agree that it takes time sometimes, correct?
I don't know, because the one thing all three of us lived through was the information revolution. Okay,
right.
The Microsofts and all the rest that went with that, computers, right, internet, right, all that stuff. We've all lived through that.
And look what happened, Larry.
Right.
Look what happened. Look what happened to my job. The perfect example at the New York Stock Exchange. Look what that revolution did. That job no longer exists, right? So essentially, I got displaced because that revolution impacted that job specifically, and around the country, in exchanges around the country.
Yeah, but think about it. Yes, but then you rebounded and moved on to a different position. But the point is, if I go back and look at the 80s and 90s, which is the information revolution, I mean, people use computers. Word processors turned into computers, and dinosaurs like me had to learn it. But the economy did great. The economy did fabulous.
Agreed.
That's my point. That was the last revolution we've had. And if you use now this one. There's a lot of unknowns and uncertainties, but I'm going to bet that the economy is going to do great. We're looking at productivity, but we're looking at building new factories and construction workers. It's already showing up in some of the data. I mean, Trump has opened the door. This whole depreciation revolution is so important. If you build factories, you're going to have to hire people. You're going to have to hire people to build them, and you're going to have to hire people to staff them. How can that be bad? I don't know. I don't get it. I think you're going to 50,000, you're going to 60,000, 70,000 on the Dow. How long that takes, I have no idea. You're going to 7,000 on the S&P and above. I don't know. Profits are killing it right now.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I just think that to Jimmy's point, your point, there is that anxiety, and I get it. There will be disruption. I get that as well. But they're on the other side. I think it looks bright. It'll be different, but it looks bright.
Yeah, but for asset prices, even in the short and medium term, it can be excellent. If they're easing rates and adding liquidity to because of job losses from AI, those same job losses that are making companies more productive, more efficient, and more profitable, they're literally injecting money into a system where the stocks and the corporate sector is already doing fine to support the labor market. That could be excellent for risk assets. That part is not what I was talking about. Although I do think there's some volatility in corrective phase just based on what I said before. But I do think I'm ultimately an absolute bull on equity markets and a bull on the economy. It seems like I'm a bull in a year on the economy more than you guys are.
Well, listen, I don't think cutting rates by a quarter of a basis point is going to help what's happening to the labor market today.
I don't at all. I agree 100%, but it helps the stock market, right?
Yes, it helps the stock market for sure, and it helps investors, yes. But it's not going to – people aren't losing jobs because the economy is in a bad place. People are losing jobs because the economy is changing, right? Technology is changing the economy. And so cutting rates is not going to stop that process.
I don't think, by the way – we have to take a break. But the job numbers, the private sector job numbers, doing just fine. It's the government, federal jobs that have plunged by 300,000 or 400,000. Trump referred to that in the State of the Union. But those are phony jobs, right? We know that. They don't produce anything. They produce paperwork and regulations. Keep your eye on private sector jobs. They're doing pretty well. Going to do even better. Anyway, take a break. Jim Urio, TJM Institutional Services, Kenny Polk Carey, Slate Stone Wealth. I'm Kudlow. We'll be right back.
The Larry Kudlow Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Larry Kudlow Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
And we've got two sharpshooters, two old friends, Jim Urio, TJM Institutional Services, Kenny Polcari, Slate Stone Wealth, two market veterans. Jim Urio, what's the interest rate outlook? What's the bond outlook? It's so interesting. Mortgage rates dipped below 6%. 30-year Freddie Mac, 5.98. I don't know if you think it can stay there or not. The 10-year 3.95. That was the close yesterday, 395, down 13 basis points. In fact, the whole Treasury curve got slammed. I don't know why everything got slammed yesterday. Perhaps that's it. What do you make of it, Jim?
So I have a hard time believing that the 10-year can go much lower, considering that the Treasury has, essentially $2 trillion to sell to finance the deficit, and then another $9 trillion is the wall of maturity that's happening this year too. So I have a difficult time thinking it can go much lower than this. I think one of the reasons that it is lower, and you're going to think I'm a crazy tinfoil hat conspiracist, I think that people believe that now that the Fed has started increasing their balance sheet again, that it's just a eyelash away from buying longer-term bonds if they felt they need to. So in my mind, that puts a cap on the 10-year, and that cap is probably not the 4.8 or whatever. It's way far gone from where we are right now. But I do think people think that yields are capped on the upside. I also think that money flowed to the 10-year because it was flowing out of tech stocks. And I think it was just kind of a normal rotation. And I don't think people are particularly worried about inflation anymore, and I'm not. But I think that 4% seems to be a kind of a floor, maybe a little bit below it, but not very much more in the 10-year.
Well, I don't think many people are buying the Iranian stock market right now.
I don't think they should either, right? And they'll probably, the knee-jerk for this is probably, 10 basis points lower in the 10-year when we open up on Sunday. And I hate, I know these things sometimes happen on weekends, but I would love markets to be open to see how the money is interpreting these events.
Ken Polcari, though, Kevin Warsh, who's going to be the new Fed chairman, he doesn't want to expand the balance sheet. He wants to shrink it.
Yeah, no, he wants to shrink it.
He wants to end QE.
Wait, because he said it like 5 years ago? You guys, I'm not sure about this. That was a long time ago, wasn't it?
Trust me.
No, listen, if he wants to cut rates, he has to shrink the balance sheet.
I talk to him a lot.
Oh, yeah, I forget you. Yeah, I forget who I'm talking to. You might know better than I.
Trust me. Now, how he goes about it will be trickier. I'm not saying you can just, snap your fingers or blow a whistle. But I don't see him buying a lot of bonds. We don't have much time left, but I just don't, he doesn't want QE. He doesn't want any Qs. No more Qs.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Yeah, he doesn't.
Your lips to God's ears. Yeah.
I mean, what the hell? Profits are more important than Qs. You know?
Yep.
Yeah, I know, and I agree. But he doesn't want any more QE, for sure.
So that's, we're going to have sounder money. Sounder money.
That.
Inflation may come down. We'll all live happily ever after. And hopefully there'll be regime change in Iran. Anyway, I'm sorry, we got to pull out. Thank you, both of you. Terrific, Kenny Polcari and Jim Urio. Liz Peek and Steve Forbes coming up next on Money, Politics. I'm Kudlow. Please stick around.
The Larry Kudlow Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Larry Kudlow Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
So welcome back, folks. More commentary on the war. I want to make just a point, a very interesting one that former National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien made, and that is the 3 goals to wipe out the ballistic missiles, wipe out any of the nuclear stuff made for weapons, and end all of the money assistance to terrorists. Those were the condensed version of the Pompeo strategy in the first term, from 10 points to 3 points. Very interesting. I'm going to add now at this point how important regime change is, one way or another. The president, in his 8-minute address, if you didn't hear it, it's worth listening to. I just heard it on my little cell phone. But anyway, he's talking about obliterating the Iranian missile factories and hoping for regime change, which I still think must come from within Iran, not from without. But let's talk about it and kick it around a little bit. I don't want to lose sight of the president's brilliant State of the Union address on Tuesday. But anyway, we have Liz Peek, great Fox News contributor and syndicated columnist. And we have my dear old friend Steve Forbes, who's the chairman and editor-in-chief of Forbes Media, and his book, Inflation, What It Is, Why It's Bad, How to Fix It. So thanks to both of you today. Things are obviously topsy-turvy. Imagine doing a radio show starting at 10 o'clock. I got a bad back. I could barely walk. And then I pick up, it's a friend of mine, Dan Bruyette, who was the energy secretary in the first term. He said, anything I can do to help on a very interesting day. And I said, oh, no, what's going on? Well, we just bombed Iran. Anyway, I'm glad we bombed Iran. And God bless all of our soldiers and airmen and so forth, Navy, and the same for Israel. But Liz and Steve, I'm sure you have some opinions on this. Let me begin with Liz Peek. Liz, what you thinking about? I know that you get the wall-to-wall blanket coverage on Fox News and so forth. Will anything jump out at you?
Well, I think the most significant development today is that almost the entire Middle East is siding with the United States and Israel.
Yes.
This is not a lone venture of United States and Israel, which typically have partnered together in striking Iran and trying to strike out against Hezbollah, Hamas, etc. This is everybody saying enough. And Larry, for all the voices in the United States saying, we didn't need this, nobody wants this, I would remind them that Iran has fomented attacks on Americans for decades. This is not the United States wantonly going after some bad apples in an otherwise friendly country. This is an unfriendly country that has killed Americans and, by the way, also promoted attempts on President Trump's life over and over again. I mean, I think the mullahs, might be thinking, sitting in Tehran thinking, maybe we shouldn't have done that. That seems kind of personal. But I mean, the FBI has foiled and Secret Service, any number of attempts on his life, supposedly promoted by Iran. So I think, these are bad guys and they have been a cancer in the heart of the Middle East forever. There is no way that Hamas is going to ever agree to get out, lay down their arms, get out of the way of a redevelopment of Gaza, with Iran still funding them and promoting them. So I think frankly, this is a righteous undertaking.
Couldn't agree more. Steve Forbes, there's a point made earlier in this show by General Keane, Jack Keane, that the U.S. Israeli forces not stop too soon, prematurely. Now, he didn't quantify it, Steve. He didn't quantify it, but certainly he was talking about what Trump said in his quick, brief 8-minute address about obliterating Iranian missile factories and all that goes with that. But Steve, I mean, my hope is, and I'm not a military man, I rely on the expertise of others like Keane, but I don't want to stop until there's regime change. This is a moment. I mean, you've got already France is talking about taking it to the UN. I don't care one whit about the UN, right? No, nobody cares about the UN. And as Liz said, the powers in the Middle East, the Arab states, the Middle East, are siding with the USA and Israel on this. I don't want to stop until somebody surrenders and there's true regime change.
You're absolutely right, adding that fourth point and four principles in terms of what we need to achieve with Iran. And Macron doing what he usually does in a situation like this, a Frenchman, he's got the backbone of an éclair. And I think, I think, Larry, in terms of the fears that we may stop too soon, I think that did happen in June, but I think this time it's a very different situation. Both President Trump and certainly Prime Minister Netanyahu know there's no turning back. This regime has to go. So whether it takes 2 weeks, several weeks, maybe a couple of months, they're going to clean this thing out, no matter what others say. And the fact that Iran's been lobbing missiles on other Arab states, I think that's going to fortify the support. Whoever would have thought a few years ago Arab nations would side with the U.S. and Israel doing a joint venture against a regime like Iran. So it's a very different situation. This time, I think they're going to see it through entirely to the end. And the thing we have to fear is not a premature end to this war, getting rid of this barbaric regime. Liz is right. Threat to the base of civilization has been for decades. The sleeper cells that Iran has planted around the world and in this country, including the open border policies of Joe Biden. I hope we are upping our security on certain facilities in this country. I'm sure we are. We're aware of it. You mentioned the attacks on President Trump's life in the past. Those things are going to continue, and these people are fanatics. These agents they planted around the world, they're fanatics, and they're going to try to do something ugly in between. So this thing is just beginning, but I think in terms of the regime in Iran, they are in soon the garbage pile of history.
I would say, to both of you, you cannot, we've learned you cannot make a deal with Iran. You cannot. Right. You just, first of all, whatever they say, they will not permit any inspection of anything, whether it's missiles, ICBMs, the nuclear stuff, the enrichment. They won't even let the UN in most of the time. But you cannot believe a word they say. And that's why I'm so fervently hoping that there will be regime change now. Let's not, this group, you cannot deal with them. They are uncivilized. They are, you see, Jared, Liz, Jared is a smart guy. Okay, he's a very smart guy, Jared Kushner. Steve Witkoff, very smart guy. Okay, they've been trying to negotiate a deal, and why is it? I knew they couldn't do it. Not that I'm against them. I'm for them. They're both personal friends of mine, and they're both very smart people. And they've been, they have the president's ear and so forth. They're working with Rubio, who's a good Secretary of State. But you just knew that it was going to fail. And we wind up exactly where we wound up today. That's the long and short. That's why I don't want to stop until there's regime change.
And honestly, Larry, that's why it's so offensive to have someone like Tim Kaine come out and say, how can the president rip up a valid nuclear deal with Iran, only to now go in and pretend he cares about Iran developing a nuclear weapon. Do these people have no memory? The JCPOA, which is what it was called, the deal that Obama struck with Iran, was so terrible he didn't even present it to Congress. He knew that Congress wasn't going to go along with it because it had almost no verification requirements. And then in the months that followed, the verification that was supposed to happen never happened. IAEA actually lied about that, in my view, for about a year or two. So hopeful were they that something was actually going to come out of that agreement. But then they finally admitted, we were never allowed in to the sites that we knew where they were developing nuclear material. So the idea that was a great agreement that we should have stuck with, completely false. And they've got to know that.
And the whole basis of that agreement, unfortunately, was the idea of Barack Obama and the people around him that they wanted Iran to be the dominant power in the Middle East. Obama obviously didn't like Israel. He didn't like the Arabs. They thought Iran was the one to run the show over there. So they had a very pro-Iranian, pro-appeasement policy. And you're right, Liz, and Larry, that they couldn't put that deal before Congress. And so Barack Obama's reputation, he doesn't know it yet, got blasted today, whatever was left of it, on foreign policy. That was a profound mistake, an uncivilized mistake, you might say, in terms of the threat to a civilized world. And I think they are going to see it through. And about time.
Ben Rhodes, if you remember, sorry, Larry, Ben Rhodes, who was very instrumental in crafting that agreement, actually kind of bared his soul to the New Yorker sometime after all of that, saying, we lied about, remember I forgot the name of the president who was supposed to be a pro-appeasement, not a pro-democracy, but a sort of pro-American guy who was going to make it all worthwhile. That is to say, they were selling the American people on the idea that there was an Iranian leader who wanted a rapprochement, who wanted peace. It was a complete fable, and he admitted it in an interview. So they have no credibility. They have no right to really pass judgment on what we're doing.
And you're right, Larry. They've been lying forever. I'm old enough to remember back in the 79, 80, when there's talk of moderate leadership. We must encourage the moderate leadships during the hostage crisis.
That's right.
They don't exist. It's a bad, evil regime. Got to go.
When I sat down with the president about 10 days ago, we had a good long interview, but the last point, or the second to the last point, was Iran, which he raised. I did not. But I asked him, I just had to, politely, can anyone ever believe anything Iran says? Now, I'm not going to argue with him, but that was my pushback. And he shook his head. He said, well, that may be. That may be. You can't believe, but they have to go through the process. Now, I think they went through that process probably hoping for a miracle. I know Jared Kushner very, very well, and I know Steve Witkoff less well. I know Jared likes to, do miracles, but I also think that the discussions going on between them, the so-called talks, were there to buy time, so you can get all the ships and flotillas and U.S. carriers and squad. That's what that was about, wasn't it, really? I mean,
I agree.
Or let me put it to you this way, Liz, just in case Iran behaves the way they have, as Steve Forbes said, the last 50 years, just in case they hold true to form, we need to have the best armada we can possibly have. Isn't that really what happened here?
Oh, I think they were playing for time.
Yes,
I mean, everybody thought the Iranians were playing for time. I think it was playing for time.
Yes.
There was no way that they... And I mean, Jared Kushner actually almost came out and said it, that, that this was not really going to happen. So, I think that it was very smart.
By the way, the attack coming in the morning instead of the evening, tactical surprise.
Yep.
But also, I think Fox reported that Israeli intelligence knew that because they thought it would be a nighttime attack, that they were meeting this morning, their time, and they may have taken out a lot of the leaders who were meeting who thought the raid was going to come at night, not during the morning.
Wouldn't that be sweet? We have to find out. They got the Ayatollah's compound. We just don't know if they got him. I asked Jack Keane, but he said he didn't know yet. We'll have to sort through it. Maybe he does know and doesn't want to say. Who knows? Anyway, let me take a quick break. Liz Peek and Steve Forbes. I'm Kudlow. We'll be right back.
The Larry Kudlow Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Larry Kudlow Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
And we're talking money and politics in Iran with two of the best, Liz Peek, Fox News contributor, and Steve Forbes, chairman and editor-in-chief of Forbes Media. Liz, so far there's one Democrat who is backing Trump on this, John Fetterman.
Yeah.
Can you believe it? I mean, he's the only...
When's John Fetterman going to become a Republican?
He's the only one. I didn't know this. You two may have known. I was kind of out yesterday. My back's been killing me, but apparently he was in a nice suit and tie for the State of the Union and committed the sin of shaking President Trump's hand, whereupon he was trashed by most of the rest of the Democratic Party for A, the suit and tie, and B, shaking the president's hand. What do you think of that, Liz Peek? How about those apples? I mean, really?
Larry, every day that goes by, I am stunned by the stupidity and the rage and the fecklessness of Democrats. What is their program? What are they selling other than, and we all have said this before, but it's really true, what are they selling other than I hate Donald Trump? What are they saying other than I'm going to obstruct everything he's done? Because guess what? A lot of the stuff he's doing and have done is very popular. So it really offends me that is the extent of their behavior. I mean, I don't know. I really, words fail me on the current Democratic Party. I think it's horribly lost.
I got to get him back on. I've had him on as a guest, and by the way, he's very good.
That's a great incident, and it shows he fills out a suit. The other Democrats are empty suits.
Yeah, really good.
That was good, Steve. But the eclair was the best, Steve. That was really the best. Now, Steve, one that's sort of quick side one here. So Paramount has won the bidding to take over Warner, and people at CNN are going crazy because they think they're going to be all knocked out. Paramount, Ellison's very conservative friends of Donald Trump. I mean, you run a media empire. What's going to happen to CNN?
I think they'll try to figure out if the thing is salvageable. What is their purpose in the world today when there's so many other media outlets? So CNN's been in trouble for a long time. We all remember the early 1990s when we had the first Iraq War, how we all depended on CNN to find out what was going on. That is long, long gone. So how do they keep this ship afloat? I think that's what they're going to ask before deciding what to do.
Yeah, no, you're right. This question is, can it make any money? I have no idea if it makes any money or not. Somebody's got to ask. But they showed, I just want to raise this. The reason it's in my head, I know the deal went through, Netflix had to pull out and so forth, but CNN ran a poll before the president went on Tuesday night, and the poll was right direction, wrong direction, 54% right direction. And then after the State of the Union, they moved that poll, went to 64% right direction. Now, I hate to rely on a CNN poll, but there you have it. I mean, there's a lot of polls that show how bad he is. CNN had this positive poll. So maybe there's a kernel of something good in there.
It's going to take a lot of fertilizer to make it grow, but these guys have brains and they may make it happen.
Who knows?
But the thing I'm looking forward to, other than what's unfolding in Iran, is when is Kevin Warsh going to have his hearings?
Yeah.
And I hope that he's listening to you, Larry, and that he publicly declares the Phillips curve, the idea that prosperity caused inflation, is now dead, and those models are going to be changed. The Fed's no longer going to try to depress the economy if they think we're doing well.
Listen, you're going to love his testimony. You're going to love it. I mean, it's not, it's all of us. I mean, he's been our pal for a long time, and you're going to love what he says. We have to clear up this whole business about Jeanine Pirro and Jay Powell and the Fed, and they're trying to get off. I think
you have the idea, Larry, that President Trump should pardon Powell.
Actually, that was John Carney's. I love that he should pardon Powell. No, I think all of us from our side of the spectrum are going to like what Kevin Warsh has to say. I don't know, Liz. I thought Trump's. We're out of time. We got about 30 seconds left. But I thought he was growthier and captivating, and I loved his State of the Union message.
I loved it. I thought it was just exactly what he needed to do. He was likable, positive, optimistic, and completely right on what he emphasized, which is that the economy is growing and it's going to grow faster. So good for him. I thought it was a tour de force.
Terrific stuff. Thank you, both of you. Liz Peek, thank you. Steve Forbes, thank you very, very much. Folks, I'm Kudlow, and we will be back next weekend. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to The Larry Kudlow Show. You can hear The Larry Kudlow Show Saturday mornings at 10. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?
Rural Americans deserve access to the best of what our country has to offer, especially health care. Across every state, every community, America's rural hospitals are the first line of defense, protecting our families, neighbors, and loved ones. No matter where you live, hospital care doesn't clock out. They're there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Each year, America's over 5,000 hospitals care for millions of patients, providing 24/7 emergency care, delivering babies, cancer treatments, and other life-saving care that patients rely on. Behind every one of those patients are doctors, nurses, and caregivers working tirelessly to keep people healthy and safe. Hospitals are our community's lifelines. They employ our neighbors and keep our families healthy. But now, some in Congress are threatening access to care. Tell Congress, protect patient care to keep America strong. Don't cut rural health care.